Hello and welcome, you cozy couch potatoes.
Hello, my cozy couch potatoes. Welcome back to Spice Rex Studios, the Cozy Couch. We are continuing with the people of Sparks, and we are on Chapter 13. Chapter 12, Caspar came back. He brought his rowing partner. That, of course, made Torin mad. Lina was upset about all the chores that she has to do, how hot it is, and I said that what she's doing doesn't compare to what the other Emberites are doing. So, sorry, Lina. And Lina overheard Caspar talking about going to the city and thinks that she heard that it was a day's journey. So now she's excited about the city, and we're going to figure out what she plans to do. So with that, let's dive into Chapter 13, Taking Action. One evening, June wandered off by himself toward the far corner of the hotel, where the trees grew thickly and the undergrowth beneath them was dense. He made his way into the woods, to a thicket of vines all woven together like thorny ropes. Little lumpy fruits, some red and some black, grew on these vines. June had already discovered that the red ones were hard and sour, but if left to ripen, they turned black and sweet. He had been checking the vines regularly. Each day there were more and more of the black ones. Today he saw there were more blackberries than red. He began picking them. Some he ate right from the vine. They were sweet and juicy. Others he put in a basket he'd brought with him to take back to the others in room 215. He heard footsteps behind him. A voice he recognized it instantly. Called out, "June!" He turned around, and there was Tick striding toward him, smiling his dazzling smile. June stood up. He'd been squatting to reach for the berries on the lowest vines. "Look what I found," he said, holding out a handful of berries to Tick. Tick took one and popped it into his mouth. His eyebrows shot up in surprise. "Terrific," he said. He took the rest of them from June's palm. "So," he said, "are you going to save us again?" Maybe other people should help with the saving. Tick up. "Save us?" said June, confused. "Yes, from starvation. You're the hero of Ember. It's about time for you to save us again." It flustered June to be called a hero. He wasn't sure if Tick was admiring him or making fun of him. He couldn't think what to say next. Tick reached into the thicket and plucked a few berries for himself. "These are good," he said. "Mind if I take some?" "They don't belong to me," said June. "Anyone can have them." Tick hunted among the vines for a while, picking berries and popping them into his mouth. Then he said, "You know that building they call the Ark?" The Ark is the people of Sparks' storehouse. In the back of the Ark is where the books are that June and Edward pocket. Yeah. So June's been in the book part. June nodded. "Ever been in it?" "No," June said. "Just in the separate room at the back. They have books in there. You should see them. There must be thousands." Tick didn't comment on the books. "I went in there the other day," he said. "They had me carry in a crate of pickled beets. It's their storehouse, you know. They say they're short of food." "Ha!" Tick gave a laugh that was more like a bark. "That place is full of food." "Really?" said June. "Okay. Alright. I can already see where this part is going. Tick is going to complain that they have a ton of food and they're not sharing with the Emberites. Well, here's what I have to say to that, Tick. Their winter months are coming. The Sparks people have worked very hard to collect all that food for their winter months. Their gardens and crops and stuff probably don't grow in winter months like it is in the real life. So they need that food. They worked hard to store that food so they can survive the winter months. But you don't understand that." But yeah, I don't think Tick understands that. Like, in the beginning when they got there, the people of the Sparks told them, you're staying until this, but at this point you have to leave. And I believe they mentioned what their months were called. I think their winter was called Chile. And I understand that he may not fully understand that, what that means, but no, that food is not extra food just willy-nilly. That is their winter food, or so I would assume. Really, said Dune. Really, said Tick, tossing 3 berries into his mouth. There's jars of preserved fruit and sacks of dried fruit and every kind of pickle, and bags of corn, loads and loads of food. And we get limp carrots for our dinners. I believe there's a bit of stinginess going on. Dune frowned. He thought of his father looking with dismay last night at the scanty contents of his dinner parcel. He thought about what Ordney had said at lunch the week before. We just don't have enough for 400 extra people. Was this untrue after all? Tick had moved a few steps away and found a patch that was thick with berries. He was picking them rapidly, eating each one. When he spoke, his words sounded a little juicy. I don't know about you, he said, but I don't like unfairness. It's kind of funny he's talking about stinginess when he's eating all these berries he's picking, and Dune was picking them to take to other people. I don't either, said Dune. He walked over to Tick and offered him the handful of berries he'd just collected. Tick took all of them. I believe an unfair situation needs to be corrected, Tick said. Corrected how? Tick wiped his red-stained fingers on his pants. Well, he said, that's something we have to figure out. We, thought Dune. He liked that. Though he'd stopped taking part so often in Tick's projects, still he admired Tick's energy and felt his power. He was glad Tick had sought him out. He was glad that Tick seemed to consider him different from the others, smarter, more important. You're right, he said. We should do something. Tick nodded. I don't trust these Sparks people, he said. In some ways, they seem very primitive. Do you know that they make fire by hitting 2 stones together? Tick, you guys barely had fire. You had matches, and I think that was just for your stoves. The stones may be the original way, but would you have known? If you didn't have matches, would you have known how to make a fire? You would have froze to death, Tick. Don't make fun of these people for using stones. They do. Dune hadn't seen anyone starting a fire, since he was rarely in the kitchens. He knew that the fire in the bakery was kept going all the time. He'd seen people going in there, sometimes carrying candles that had gone out. They don't have matches, he said. Sometimes they do, said Tick, but not always. Matches seem to be rare. We should give them some of ours, said Dune. And there's Dune being nice and wanting to be helpful to even the Sparks people. All the people who'd come out of Ember had the matches that were supplied with the boats. The Emberites had hundreds of matches. Oh, I don't think so, Tick said quickly. We need them. We have to keep those for ourselves. Who's the stingy one? Dune wondered why, when they had so many. But he thought maybe matches figured somehow in Tick's plans. So you're with me? Said Tick. Sure, said Dune. Then he hesitated. With you in what? Action, said Tick. You took action before when there was an urgent situation. We may need to take action again pretty soon. Dune still didn't know what Tick had in mind, but he asked no more questions. Tick had a way of letting you know that he'd given all the answers he was going to give. All right, said Dune. All right, Dune said. I'm with you. Good, said Tick. He held out his hand and Dune shook it. Tick grinned and walked away. Dune watched him lope across the field. For a moment, he was lost in his thoughts. Food in the storehouse, stinginess, unfairness. Figure something out. You're with me. When he came to himself again, he glanced down at his hands. He was startled to see them streaked with blood. Had he scratched himself in the thorns of the vines? It took him a second to realize that what looked like blood was only berry juice passed to his hands from Tick's. Lina made a plan. She'd hide among the boxes and crates on Caspar's truck, and she would hide that way to the city. It was only a day's journey away. What did I say? I knew it. Surely she'd be able to find a way back. There must be other roamers on the roads. Of course she could just ask Caspar if she could go with him, but she was sure he'd say no. Better to ask for forgiveness than permission. Or easier, huh? What's the saying? Is that right? Something like that. He was on some kind of important business. He wouldn't want to be bothered with her. It was best to go secretly. Once she had seen the city, she would know if it was the place where the people of Ember were destined to live. She was sure she'd know as soon as she saw it. Then she could hop out of the truck and find her way back. Caspar might never see her at all. The next day she tore part of a blank page out of one of the doctor's books and wrote this note. Dear Mrs. M, I have gone with Caspar and Maddie on the truck. I will be back in 2 days or maybe 3. There is something important I want to find out. Also, I need a change from here. See you soon. Love, Lina. Her plan was to wait until that night when Mrs. Murdo was asleep and tuck the note between the pages of an ancient, crumbling book she had been reading, something called Charlotte's Web. I want to know what year it is that they came out. I want to know what year they went in, and I want to know what year they came out. Anywho, she kept urging Lina to look at it, but Lina said she wasn't that interested in spiders. It would be better for June. Mrs. Murdo read only in the evening, so Lina would have at least a day's head start before anyone knew where she was. A few doubts about her plan lurked in the back of Lina's mind. She knew Mrs. Murdo would worry about her. Poppy would miss her, and Lina didn't really like Caspar or trust him, and she knew that he and Maddie would probably be angry if they found that she had come along. It was a bit of a risky journey she was embarking on, but anything truly important involved risks, didn't it? She had taken a huge risk before in the last days of Ember, and it had been the right thing to do. So probably this was the right thing too. She was so sure the city was their destination, and she was so determined to see the city for herself that she turned her mind away from her doubts. It would be an adventure, she told herself. She would be fine. She got up before the sun the next morning. She crept out of her bed on the floor on one tiny motion at a time. Poppy didn't stir. How did she wake herself up? They don't have alarm clocks, so how did she know to wake up at that time? She got up before the sun the next morning. She crept out of her bed on the floor, one tiny motion at a time. Poppy didn't stir, nor did Mrs. Murdo in her bed on the couch. In the half-darkness, Lina put her clothes on and pulled the pillowcase bag she'd packed the night before from its hiding place in the window seat. She tucked her note between the pages of Mrs. Murdo's book. Then, carrying her bag, she opened the door so softly it made no noise and went out into the courtyard. Just beyond the gate, the truck was standing ready. The oxen weren't attached to it yet. They were down the road at the barn, to be brought later by the stable hand. Lina climbed onto the back of the truck. Its metal bottom was gritty with dust and bits of dry grass. It was loaded with 4 large barrels, 2 bicycles strapped together, a box full of tubs and buckets, and 4 big wooden crates made of slats of wood spaced about an inch apart. The crates were taller than Lina and about 4 feet square, like small rooms almost. 3 of them were full of goods to be sold, but the 4th was empty. Its contents had been sold in sparks. That one would be Lina's hiding place. Getting into it was easy. First she tossed her bag over the side, and then she climbed up the slats as if they were a ladder and jumped down in. The wood was rough and splintery, but she had prepared for that. She brought a small blanket from her bed. She spread this on the bottom of the crate and lay down on it, using her bag of supplies as a pillow. She was sure that if she lay very still, no one would see her. And she was right. An hour or so later, she didn't know for sure how long, but the sun was now shining through the slats in the crate, and she could feel its warmth on her back. She heard the clatter of the gate latch and voices, Torn first. "But I'd be helpful," he said in a tearful, desperate wail. "I would. I know how to tie knots, and I can..." "Now that's enough," said Caspar. "You're not coming with us. Get it through your hard little head. You're not old enough. Roaming is a dangerous business. It's not for children." "She gets to go," Torrin said. I bet that made Lina's heart jump. "Of course, she's not a child. She's my partner." Lina felt a jolt as the box holding Caspar's and Maddie's belongings was heaved up onto the truck. Here comes Joe with the oxen right on time," said Caspar. The truck squeaked and trembled as the oxen were hitched to it. Lina heard the gate latch clatter again, and then the doctor's voice. "When will you be back this way?" "Not for a while." The truck slanted as Caspar got on. "Several months is my guess. We've got a big route planned out." "You should be taking me," cried Torrin. "You'll be sorry you didn't. I'll tell on you. I'll tell Uncle." Caspar chuckled. "Uncle would not be interested," he said. "He's much too busy. Always has been." There was the crack of a whip. "Goodbye, little brother," Caspar called, and the truck jolted forward. And there we have it. That is the end of chapter 13, and I'm so excited. The next chapter is part 2. That means we're halfway through this book, and I'm so excited to learn more. So I will see you next time, my cozy couch potatoes. I hope you enjoyed this chapter as much as I did, and have a good one. Bye.